Hey everyone, how was your holidays? Mine was good. So anyway, it's round 2 and we've got Duraludon facing against Jolteon. Let's look at some decks. Up first we have RYLEY's Duraludon deck. The message RYLEY is basically sending to everyone at this tournament by bringing this deck is I'll either auto win or auto lose. I'm just gambling on the field today. I hope it consists of a lot of Mew vmax and a lot of things that run special energy, because Duraludon's skyscraper ability lets it avoid taking damage from any Pokemon with special energy attached. Now we've seen Mew vmax's Fusion Strike energy, very popular in the metagame right now. Obviously Mew attacks with it as well as Meloetta. We will go a bit deeper into Riley's deck though. He is running a 3-3 Duraludon line, so he can get that into play without too much trouble. He's running the Metal Duraludon with the let's take less damage from attacks. He's also running 2 of the Zacian. The Zacian obviously great draw power in that Intrepid Sword ability. The Zamazenta V. Zamazenta V is also a wall, not in the same way Duraludon, but the fact that it can prevent attacks from VMAX Pokemon, that can put a lot of decks in some pretty strange situations too, where they're forced to attack with vastly inferior attackers. So taking a look at Riley's supporter line, we see 4 Boss's Orders, we see 4 Professor's Research. This is fairly standard, nothing's too out of the ordinary here. But then we get to the 4 Adventurer's Discovery. Now Adventurer's Discovery is a new card out of the Fusion Strike expansion. Basically what this does is it lets you take 3 V Pokemon from your deck. In a lot of decks you just want to run through your cards as quickly as possible with your Professor's Research and your Marnies, but Duraludon likes to take things a bit slow. Once it's set up, there's really not a lot that many of the decks in the metagame can do about it. You're happy to take a slower setup with the Adventurer's Discovery, just grab whatever you need from it, whether it be the Duraludons or the Zamazenta, or even the Zacian V if you need to get some cards going. Onto the rest, we've got Avery. 3 copies of Avery. Avery draws you 3 cards and forces your opponent to discard their bench down to 3. Now, in a lot of circumstances, this isn't too devastating, but against decks like Mew, remember that Mew is basically public enemy number 1 in this tournament, and pretty much the entire Fusion Strike format. Forcing your opponent to shrink their bench can really sort of slow them down. It lets them draw a little bit less off their Fusion Strike system abilities with their Genesects. And in some cases, you might force your opponent into discarding the Genesects themselves. They might want to keep something like the Mew or the Meloetta or whatever they have in play. So yeah, 3 copies of Avery, really good for just slowing down some of your opponents that like to play with full boards. Obviously this is useful as well in matchups like Suicune. Now the Flannery is a bit of a control tech card here. Lets you discard a special energy and a stadium in play, I believe. It is a single strike supporter, but discarding the stadium can really help. Obviously Riley doesn't want to see too many Parts of the Peak, and Parts of the Peak is quite popular in a lot of decks at the moment. Discarding the special energy does seem a bit counterintuitive, given that Duraludon's ability lets you avoid damage from it at all, but in terms of getting a slower setup sometimes, or wanting to avoid the Max Miracle from the Mew VMAX, it's good to just get that energy out of there. Riley runs 1 copy of Raihan. Now, Raihan is a popular card in a lot of decks. Obviously, the ability to search your deck for any one card is absolutely great. Attaching the energy from your discard pile is also quite useful. Not much more to say about Raihan. Raihan's very good. Raihan is in most decks at the moment, most decks that need multiple energy to set up an attacker anyway. So on to the rest of Riley's trainer line. We got the Bore Switch, 4 Pokegear, 4 Crushing Hammer. Crushing Hammer, obviously, to slow your opponent down. You want to be hitting a lot of heads with your Crushing Hammers, and if you do, you can really put your opponent behind on their setup. Pokegear lets you dig a little bit deeper. It gives you more outs to finding those supporters on turn 1. Remember that in this deck you're not running the Inteleon line like nearly every other deck is at the moment, so if you don't draw into what you need, you can get some dead hands. Pokegear obviously is there to sort that out. 2 Tool Scrapper, quite an odd number of Tool Scrapper to be run in a deck. A lot of decks are not running 2 Tool Scrapper, or even 1 in a lot of cases. In Riley's circumstances, I think he really wants to prevent things like Air Balloon from coming down, or maybe even Tool Jammer in the case of his own big charms here. 4 Crystal Cave in Riley's deck. The Crystal Cave obviously very good for getting a little bit of gradual healing going. Once per turn you can heal 30 damage from all of your dragon and metal Pokemon. All of Riley's Pokemon are dragon and metal. This slows down things like quick shooting from Inteleons. You can basically completely negate those. It also stops some kind of spreadier decks like the Rapid Strike Urshifu and Jolteon. If you can get a Crystal Cave stuck into play, you can really slow your opponent down and really reduce that damage over time. So this is Riley's deck. He's made a very gambly meta call here. He's trying to make it through with Duraludon and punish all the special energy that's roaming around. Let's go over to his opponent now, KIRRYN, who is also playing quite a lot of special energy. He is playing the Jolteon deck. Jolteon was quite a slept-on card when it came out in the Evolving Skies expansion. In fact, a lot of the evolutions were. We were a bit more hyped about things like Suicune, but in Jolteon's case, as it has been in the past very often, the ability to attack 2 things at once is very powerful in the Pokemon TCG. Jolteon's attack does 100 damage to the defending Pokemon, and it can do 100 damage to any Pokemon on the bench with any damage counters on it. In KIRRYN's case, he has the 2 Galarian Zigzagoon to put damage counters on there with the Headbutt Tantrum ability. Obviously that's only good for 10 damage, but in KIRRYN's case that's good enough to get the knockout with Jolteon VMAX. KIRRYN is also running the Inteleon line, the 4 Sobble, 4 Drizzile, and the 2-1 Inteleon split line. This is KIRRYN's consistency engine in this deck. Obviously he wants to find his trainer cards very early and very often. Being able to level ball through a Drizzile and using that Drizzile to be able to access any card in your deck is very strong, as we've seen in round 1, and I'm sure we might see in future rounds of this tournament. So onto his supporter line, he's running 3 Marnie and 3 Professor's Research. This is a bit of a thinner draw supporter line than we're used to seeing. However, in KIRRYN's case, he has the Inteleon line there to grab pretty much whatever he needs. He's running 4 Quick Ball, 4 Level Ball, and 4 Evolution Incense. So right there, 1/5 of KIRRYN's deck is devoted to searching. Obviously all 3 of those cards can take anything he needs. He has the 3 Scoop Up Nets. These can be good for reusing Galarian Zigzagoon. Also you can reset your Inteleons too. Obviously once you reach your Shady Dealings or your Quick Shooting Inteleon, you can't get any more value out of the Drizzile. However, you can reset the line with the Scoop Up Net, bring that back into your hand. You can evolve any Sobble you would have in play at that time. Yeah, we do see a lot of Scoop Up Net in the Inteleon decks. Next up we got the 1 Energy Search. KIRRYN is only running 3 basic Lightning Energy in this deck. However, having a way to search for that with an item card is very strong. Once again, this all goes back to Drizzile and its amazing Shady Dealings ability. KIRRYN is running 3 of the Elemental Badge. This item card lets you attack for 1 less energy with Jolteon. So Jolteon can be attacking for 1 lightning energy, which is a very efficient way to be doing 100 damage to 2 things. This also lets you make good use of the 2 Cheryl that he is running. Cheryl heals all damage from all your evolution Pokemon in exchange for discarding all the energy from them. So with the Elemental Badge, you can basically heal up with Cheryl, attach an energy, and keep attacking. In a lot of cases, Cheryl can be pretty disruptive if you're trying to string attacks together. However, in Jolteon's case, it's a lot less disruptive, as usually you'll only need 1 energy. KIRRYN is also running 2 Parts of the Peak. So these Parts of the Peak obviously stop abilities, and in his case they're going to be very valuable. We can see from his deck that he's running 4 Speed Lightning and 1 Capture Energy, and again only those 3 basic Lightning Energy. KIRRYN could be in a lot of trouble if Riley gets the Skyscraper Duraludon set up and just stuck there with the Crystal Cave in play. I think this is an interesting matchup, and it probably goes to the person who can get their board established quicker. Obviously, if KIRRYN can get a Parts of the Peak in play and start attacking very quickly with those Jolteons before Riley can come up with any response, he can probably put on too much pressure for Riley to recover from. However, if Riley's slower setup pays off for him and he's able to get these 8 energy off the board, which isn't too much trouble considering the amount of energy hatred he has in the deck, he can just be sitting there with his Duraludons and these Jolteons won't be able to do very much to him at all. So I think we've got a bit of a foot race here in this matchup. So let's get into it. Here we have the players getting set up for round 2. Both players won in the first round, so getting to 2-0 will put either player at a pretty good advantage here. Not quite sure who's going first here. The flip of the coin is very, very important in today's metagame. I think in a matchup like this, it could be even more important. We have the very fast deck taking on the very slow deck. Looks like it will be KIRRYN who's going first. Looks like he's drawn for turn, but we're just waiting for things to start. He kicks us off with the Speed Lightning Energy. Speed Lightning Energy will let him draw 2 cards. He plays what I believe is a level ball. It's difficult to tell with the glare on that, but it most likely is, as he's grabbing the Sobble with that. So getting your Sobbles set up is very, very good. You get to get everything ready for your Drizziles and you can get your setup going. KIRRYN's having a very good turn 1 here. He's played exactly 2 cards so far, and if he passed right here, it would still be a pretty good turn. That's exactly what he does. RYLEY begins his turn, attaches Fighting Energy and Big Charm to Duraludon, gets Crystal Cave into play, and immediately fires off a Professor's Research. So RYLEY's also starting off pretty quick here. He plays the Zacian, goes for the Intrepid Sword. These players are having some very quick turns here. Action is back on KIRRYN. Part of the Peak in play. RYLEY does not want to see that. No, Part of the Peak will stop his Zacian's Intrepid Sword as well as the Skyscraper from Duraludon. KIRRYN gets another Sobble into play and a Drizzile, so his setup is going quite well at this point. Shady Dealings will take the Evolution Incense and get Jolteon VMAX on board. I think we're about to see a couple of 100 damage hits come out, just as long as he can get any kind of damage onto that Zacian. So we see a Marnie from KIRRYN here. He wants to dig just a little deeper into this deck, maybe get that Galarian Zigzagoon. That would really get the ball rolling with the damage here.
Anything that goes into the deck, you're allowed to cast just for the lol.
If not, I'm sure he'd be fairly content to be doing just the 100 damage to the Duraludon. RYLEY is already down 1 stadium. These stadiums are super important in this matchup, and I believe RYLEY had one in his hand before he was forced to money it away. So you do see that Galarian Zigzagoon come down, that Headbutt Tantrum, hitting Zacian for measly 10 damage, but it's not going to be so measly once we consider the Jolteon is about to put some real hurt on that Zacian here. KIRRYN's still going, wanting to solidify his position even more, getting another Jolteon V on board. Just having that on deck for if and when the one he's attacking with now goes down. But for now he's happy to end his turn by attacking here. RYLEY draws a Crushing Hammer. It could be interesting. It might slow KIRRYN's setup down just a little bit. RYLEY going in the deck for that Raihan. Now he hasn't taken a knockout yet. KIRRYN hasn't taken a knockout on RYLEY, so that Raihan is currently bricked. But RYLEY's hand, from what we saw, is not particularly strong right now. And Marnie was very effective. We just see a couple of Metal Energy. And the hammer misses, so things aren't going so well for RYLEY in this second turn here. And RYLEY just has to pass. He can't even Intrepid Sword, thanks to that Part of the Peak from KIRRYN. So KIRRYN is in a fairly dominant position here. KIRRYN immediately goes into his deck and gets the Inteleon out, the Rapid Strike Quick Shooting Inteleon. That Quick Shooting hit would be enough to get the knockout on the Zacian this turn, as it would have 90 health remaining after, and obviously Jolteon could finish it off. The Duraludon still has that big charm on it, so it has a little bit more to work with, and it will survive this hit. KIRRYN going a bit deeper with that Professor's Research.
I got enough of them. Actually, I'll go back in.
So he gets the Drizzile here. You gotta wonder what he's after at this point. He's got everything going pretty well. Although he might want another Sobble just to keep things going. He's got such a good setup. He's really thinning that deck. Okay, he goes for the Zigzagoon here. That's interesting. I believe that ping might go on the Zacian. That lets him save the quick shooting for a different target.
Seems good. Then just whack, yeah.
No, it looks like he chooses to do it to the active. I think he'd already committed to the quick shooting at this point.
And I'm screwed for a few turns.
Oh, but that does let him get the knockout on both Pokemon. So KIRRYN has taken a 4-prize turn here. RYLEY does have access to that Raihan, but with nothing else in hand, he probably has to grab something like a supporter card with this Raihan, which he won't be able to play this turn. Instead, he opts to grab that Crystal Cave. He's really values getting that part of the peak out of play, but there's no promise of anything coming from his deck, so while he can get 2 energy on this Duraludon, he'll be left at the mercy of whatever's on top of his deck to get back in this game. KIRRYN looks to be in complete control of this. He even has the Elemental Badge and the Cheryl for future turns if he needs it. Doesn't really look like he will. I think as long as KIRRYN keeps putting the pressure on here, I think he's in a very good position to take this game 1. KIRRYN's getting even more aggressive. He's gotten the 2nd quick shooting Inteleon into play, so even without a bench, KIRRYN will still be able to deal 140 damage per turn, which basically guarantees KIRRYN the game here if RYLEY can't top deck his way out of this. He would need something like a Professor's Research, or I don't even know at this point. He's really in control of this one, I would say. And there's the path to the peak, so really shutting the door on RYLEY for this one. 140 damage comes down on this Duraludon here. RYLEY's top deck is a Pokegear. That could be something. He finds the Adventurer's Discovery. He really wants a draw supporter here. He's not going to get one. Keep in mind that this Duraludon V, yeah, KIRRYN only has 2 prizes left. He absolutely must evolve it this turn. So one of the targets from this Adventurer's Discovery is probably going to have to be the vmax, you would imagine. See him grab the Zamazenta and the vmax. Another Zamazenta. Ordinarily that Zamazenta would be immune to the damage from the Jolteon, but in this instance, part of the peak is out. KIRRYN only plays 2 copies of that, but he's made incredibly good use of them. He's gotten quite a bit of value out of it. It's almost as if he's playing 4 and not 2. KIRRYN top decks the Scoop Up Net. He could play it. He could not. Yeah, so he puts the Zigzagoon in hand. I kind of like this. Maybe you want to put another Sobble into play. Yeah, he does exactly that with the Bubble Ball. So KIRRYN realizes he's in enough of a lead that he can afford to play conservatively at this point. He just wants to shut the door on any opportunity RYLEY might have to come back into this game. KIRRYN has taken no damage on any of his Pokemon in this game, but you still want to shut off any opportunity your opponent might have, so disaster hits, but you still have that out to drizzle your way out of it. KIRRYN clearly wants that. KIRRYN thinking of where he wants to put that damage. Yeah, so he will use both quick shootings on that bench Zamazenta, and then he will attack with the Jolteon. Riley is on a 1-turn clock, but he finds the Professor's Research. A lot of this could have been avoided if Riley had found the Professor's Research a bit earlier. It's a nice draw, but I think it's come just a little bit too late for him here. See that Crushing Hammer, another miss. Riley understands that that's game. Even if he had hit the hammer there, I just don't like his odds, even if he hits the hammer. So Riley sees that he probably needs to go to a game 2 if he has any chance of winning this with his slower build. Remember that the players only have 50 minutes to complete a match here, so yeah, your time's a pretty valuable resource, and Riley pulls the plug on this one 11 minutes in, so there's plenty of time to go to a game 2 and try and win out in a game 3 here. So players are shuffling up for game 2.
And then the capture energy will come in close.
We see Riley is a 6-piler, KIRRYN is a 10-piler. Yeah.
I don't know if I like that.
Switching it up a bit. Very soothing to watch this.
You'd use it once and then it would just be away. It'd be good to bulk stadium.
It's good as a stadium buff, I guess.
Yeah. Other than that, you've got quick balls there.
Yeah, that's true.
Quick balls, you've got level balls. Quick balls can grab you.
Now, in terms of what Riley could do differently, I think he's probably made the best decision he can do differently than he did in game 1, and that is by going first.
I was playing Gengar the other night.
I think in going first he can get things like Intrepid Sword and get his energy on board and not have to worry about things like that. Those 2 copies of Path to the Peak, just having that extra turn to get everything set up means he can hopefully get his attackers going this time. I really would like to see Riley get some damage on board in this game.
Gengar already needs 2, maybe 3 energies.
It needs 3 energy. If you can get 3 energy turn.
KIRRYN is all shuffled up and ready.
So you're going first, aren't you?
So is Riley, and we'll be getting into a game 2. Riley will have that Zacian to start with, so and he'll get an extra card thanks to a mulligan from KIRRYN. So Riley's 6-card hand, after playing the basic, will be an 8-card hand to start his turn, and yeah, from there he should be able to at least dig through some of his deck and see what's going on. Remember that Riley really wasn't in game 1 because of a Marnie that really bricked his hand and left him with nothing. Obviously the subsequent Pokegear for the Raihan bricked him too, because he couldn't really get any use out of that Raihan.
Shuffle used to be one of my
Yeah, but if Riley can just thin his deck of bad cards and
I ran stall shuffle.
hopefully Intrepid Sword his way into something good, he'll be less likely to completely brick out like he did in that game 1. KIRRYN, on the other hand, had basically the ideal game 1. He got his attackers set up, no problem. He had Sobbles on board, he was in no trouble at all.
Draw more cards.
KIRRYN has mulliganed again. KIRRYN is running 10 basic Pokemon. So you would expect a deck running 10 basics to mulligan every now and then. It's less common for it to mulligan twice in a row.
You get adventure.
All of a sudden, he's given Riley pretty good odds of getting the start. There's a third.
You're all good, bro. You know, turn 1 adventure, it's just set. Yeah.
So Riley gets an Intrepid Sword to start the game, basically for free. He then gets to play whatever cards he gets, and then end his turn with another Intrepid Sword.
Completely cocky.
So Riley started his hand with 7 cards. He will draw 3 off the mulligan, 1 for his turn, and 3 off the Intrepid Sword. Riley basically gets 2 hands to start this game.
4 pokey gears or something off that.
Riley mixing it up, shuffling his opponent's deck this time,
I think you only
realizing that the games are won or lost in the mulligans. So, can we see a 4th? He's wondering.
What is it? Why am I gonna get?
Oh, 4 mulligans. So,
Took him out before I
I'm sure
shuffled.
I'm just shuffling, man.
No, I'm joking. You're
Riley with his expert shuffling.
When I come in the middle, confuses the deck.
I did mention that in terms of things Riley can do different, he can get set up a bit quicker.
I swear, when I reversed
Nothing
him,
better for that than just getting
literally 4 or 5
4
times.
extra cards out of your deck to start the
If he
game.
ever cuts my deck,
These cards could be things like Duraludons, Quick Balls,
Shit on.
could be a Stadium to play on turn 2.
Jolteon. Well, I had no idea what to play, yeah.
Remember that every little mulligan that KIRRYN gives him probably knocks Riley's win probability up just a couple percent each
Oh, we
time.
up to 4 mulligans, bro.
Yep.
4 mulligans already.
Mulligan once and then drew hand.
In this case, I think it at least prevents Riley from bricking quite as hard as he did in game 1.
I'm
So
not sure. We'll have to see. He won't-
yeah,
he
hopefully you
won't
can
get
see both of these decks.
the deck's not that inconsistent.
Yeah,
Now we got a basic.
There
give
we
it
go.
to their full
I'll take
potential
it.
this time. There we are. Jolteon V in the active.
Wow. Cool. I missed.
Riley takes his mulligans. They were not great.
Zacian out. You're sweet, Intrepid Sword.
Zacian is not the Pokemon.
Does find another Zacian, but
Intrepid Sword?
I don't know how valuable it is. Oh, for all of that, Riley gets to attach a big charm, which is quite useful, and then Intrepid Sword.
Yeah, Scrapper away your
KIRRYN immediately drops Path to the Peak, attaches energy. Tool Scrappers the big charm and goes for the Professor's Research. KIRRYN has started just about perfectly. The only thing that could be even more perfect is, I don't know, if he'd Marty instead of Professor's Research, flushing that
and then I'm gonna pass.
15 or so card hand to the bottom of Riley's deck.
Look at me stobbles. Hammer. How many tails without a hammer does this match?
Hammer.
So we see the turn go back to Riley. Oh,
Where you hit two
Riley
tails
is
off, right?
0 for 4 on these crushing hammers. Riley will tell you about
Discovery
some
as well, that's bust.
terrifyingly bad runs with the dice and the crushing hammers in these games,
Yeah, it says search V.
especially leading up to this tournament. He does get access to that Adventurous Discovery though, so he can get these Duraludons on board this time, which is
Oh no, I do.
at least an improvement on what he did in game 1.
Type people. Because you just hate humanity. Complete.
However, KIRRYN once again has gotten that Path to the Peak stuck there.
4 of them, eh?
I don't know what I did to you, but apparently.
Although Riley does have that Crystal Cave, so he can get around it this time. He can at least get another Intrepid Sword this time.
Few scrappers, eh?
So the Fighting Energy come down as well as the Big Charm.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna cave. So I can sort.
There's the Crystal Cave. That Path to the Peak is bumped, and Riley ends his turn with an Intrepid Sword. Bit better of an Intrepid Sword this time. We see the Pokegear and the Crushing Hammer from that one.
One time I had capture energy in hand.
However, it's hard to say how effective the Crushing Hammer will be.
Money, bro.
Would you like to cut?
Also, funny thing to note about KIRRYN's setup, he has no Sobbles on board, but he seems to be doing just fine in getting everything he needs.
13 plus.
So fine, in fact, that he has a Jolteon VMAX with 2 basic lighting energy. Remember that KIRRYN only runs 3 basic lighting energy in this deck at all, so
I got a goon. I'll goon ping the one with the energy on it. I don't want it.
yeah, for him to have 2 down just like that is quite lucky, I would say.
Quick all in there. Stobble. And then I think I was 100 bro.
KIRRYN just going through, getting the damage down with that jolteon. He's already
Gonna heal some anyway.
putting a lot of pressure on Ryley here.
That's why I hate Crystal Cave.
Going for the boss's orders now. Just trying to make something happen. He still doesn't have very much of a setup established here. However, he will find good use out of that Crystal Cave, getting some healing on that Zacian and the Duraludon there. So, with those, with that healing done, he will at least get to avoid the knockout from the Jolteon VMAX here. Keep in mind that he's bossed up the Jolteon VMAX. However, it has free retreat, so he didn't get a whole lot of value out of his support for turn there. KIRRYN is going through the deck. He finally has that Drizzle set up that he wanted. Looks like KIRRYN will be really ready to get going here if he can find what he wants. Not fully sure what he's after here. Oh, I see it. So he takes the money. Pondering the money. I think I might have liked to see him take the path to the peak here, but wanting to shrink down Ryley's hand makes him a lot less effective in this matchup.
Yeah, I think it's the money.
Reduce that money. Ryley's hand is not bad though. He will be. He does get the Professor's Research. It would force him to throw away yet another boss's orders. For now though, KIRRYN gets the loaded up Jolteon back in the active. Okay, we see the players disputing over one of the Jolteon VMAXs on the bench. It looks like KIRRYN has benched it without playing the Jolteon V. Looks like he's tried to get a little cheeky special summon off there, but players are on top of that. You'll notice that thankfully, and yeah, we've managed to avoid the situation. That's good. Before KIRRYN's turn is out though, he's still going through his deck. I think he wants to get those Sopples on board. Really get a strong position, just like he had in game 1. You could argue he's pretty much already there at this point. He already has the Shady Dealings Inteleon in hand, so for next turn he could find something like Parts of the Peak and Marnie. This would stop any attempt at healing that Ryley could make, and it would probably put him in a fairly bad position, especially if the cards don't really go his way. You see Jolteon's attack coming down onto the active Zacian and the bench Duraludon. Ryley goes ahead immediately and heals that off with the Crystal Cave, not even bothering to put the full 100 on before erasing it the next turn. He knows what he's about. He's definitely playing Crystal Cave this turn. No reason not to, so he'll just heal his guys here. That Zacian, on the other hand, is still in range of getting knocked out next turn. However, Ryley can evolve his bench Duraludon, which we see here. Duraludon is evolved now, so it's out of knockout range from Jolteon, but... Oh! We saw a pretty strong Intrepid Sword there from Ryley. He hit 2 Metal Energy, which anyone playing a deck with an attacking Zacian would love to see, but obviously you can't keep them there. The energies will just
You just killed him.
get taken off the board next turn when KIRRYN decides to attack. KIRRYN going for the quick shooting setup instead of going for shady dealings. This tells us that he's more than happy with what he has in hand. He doesn't need to find two trainer cards with the shady dealings. He's happy to start getting some damage pings on the board, and he's happy to just search for one card with Drizzle's shady dealings. He's eyeing up that Marnie. He's also eyeing up parts of the peak. He goes for parts of the peak. Remember that this is KIRRYN's last part of the peak. He does only play the two, but from how menacing they've been, from how much of a presence they've had in this matchup, you would think he's running 3 or 4 or 6 or 7 or 9 or 10. Gets the quick shooting on the Duraludon on the bench. And KIRRYN just attacks. He will knock out this Zacian and he gets 100 extra damage on the Duraludon V. This forces RYLEY to at least evolve the one on the bench. He has to spend some resources to do that. He does not have the Duraludon vmax in hand. Okay, interesting. RYLEY, looked like RYLEY was really after that Avery. He takes it off the Poké Gear without a moment's hesitation. RYLEY's deck is upside down. Happens to us all. But yeah, that Avery will force KIRRYN to discard 2 of his Pokemon on the bench. To me, it doesn't seem that difficult. You obviously chuck the Galarian Zigzagoon. Probably throw away the Sobble too. Maybe the Drizzle. Really depends if you still have that shady dealings in hand. You can still see he has that shady dealings in hand, so he goes pretty much how I would have there. He chucks Zigzagoon and Sobble. He will still have access to 2 trainer cards next turn if he wants them. And look at this, we are 27 minutes in and RYLEY has finally announced an attack. He gets 240 damage onto this Jolteon, I believe, with Duraludon's attack, the name of which is escaping me currently. Gmax something or other. You notice that I also don't know the name of Jolteon VMAX's attack. Yeah, so it's a good thing these VMAXs have only 1 attack each, and they're fairly notable in this metagame for what they do, so I don't have to know the names. Action is back on KIRRYN now. He gets the Zigzagoon again, so he can start targeting down that Zamazenta on the bench. If KIRRYN can find a boss's orders here, which he might be able to, he only runs 1 copy of it, but keep in mind he does have the shady dealings in Teleon. There's the boss, it was already in hand. So he's targeting up that Zamazenta V. RYLEY is now on a 1-turn clock. KIRRYN goes down to 2 prizes. KIRRYN showing his hand to the camera, showing those prizes. Showing them to, I believe that is me over there, sitting over there. Yeah, a little flourish for the camera, I like that. RYLEY's in big trouble here. He can knock out this Jolteon and get some prizes, but that energy search is huge. It will find the last lightning energy in deck for KIRRYN, and that will give him a fairly decisive 2-0 victory here in this round 2 matchup. RYLEY's still going through the deck, seeing what he can see, seeing what he can find, getting that adventurous discovery. I mean, this attack will wipe 2 of the
that means you can't box.
2 of those basic energy off the board. The problem is
Get rid of the quick shoot.
KIRRYN just top decks the energy.
With a cave or something.
He has game. I think he's just trying to make absolutely sure. And yeah, Riley scoops up the cards. KIRRYN wins this match 2-0. Yeah, it looks like the faster deck won here. KIRRYN also shows he had the Jolteon here. He had game in quite a lot of ways there. So playing scoop up the cards. KIRRYN will be going to a 2-0 record, I believe. And yeah, I will see you all in round 3.
Jolteon in hand too, in case I need shady dealings or something. Game over. Used to have research. Yeah, that was my damn other research too.